So what are the risks? We talked a little bit about the rewards of being in a startup. What are the risks? I'd say the number one thing in terms of risk in a startup is bad product market fit. Okay. Product market fit is how well your product is what the market is looking for. It's not how well your product works. In the startup that I did, we pivoted a number of times. We had, and this is 20 years ago, our wild idea was that install of these products was really difficult. So instead of installing the product, we will just build a little thing on their side that's a data collector, and we'll take care of all of the stuff for running the website, and basically we'll provide it as a service. And this will just be a software service instead of a software product that we install. And at the time, nobody had ever heard of a software service, and it wouldn't sell. So we built a product that the DBAs were really interested in, but they couldn't get their management to agree to buy it because it's different. So Pass 2, we tried redoing the product where we actually put all of the servers and the service on something that they just had to hook up to their business, hook up inside their operation. And, this was like a toaster. You just plug the thing in, configure these two things on this screen, and it's up and ready to start using. So we thought this was a good idea, and the DBAs were all over it, and the upper management was all over it, and the IT department went, that box doesn't look like all the other boxes that have maintenance from one company like Sun, so we will never approve it. So that wouldn't sell. And we haven't made big changes in the product. The DBAs liked what they saw. Upper management liked what they saw. It was meeting their needs that way, but we couldn't sell it. And finally, on the third one, we went, okay, we're going to buckle down. We're going to build an installer for this, and we're going to make it so that we can install it out in the field. The installer was a third of the code in the entire product. But guess what? We made it installable, and it started selling. That's because they liked it, but we had to have fit for what the market would actually buy. I think if you went back with the same product today and you said this is software as a service, everyone would go, oh, yeah, that's fine. Okay? So making it into something that has got a good fit is part of this. Second one is raising capital. I have no magic bullet for raising capital, but it is hard, okay? You are better off to raise fewer times than less in smaller pieces. There is no more effort in raising 1 million than there is in raising 10,000. Those are equivalent. They have the same paperwork. They have the same effort. So, if possible, raise fewer pieces in larger chunks. The third one is you're working with the wrong people. Let's be serious. If you're going to go into a startup and you're going to work closely with people 80 hours a week for years, you're going to have to get along with them. If you go, this person's a complete idiot every day of your life, or they're driving you crazy, it isn't going to work, you are going to burn out, they are going to burn out, it's going to be ugly. And I've seen that sort of thing happen. I've had that happen in some of the businesses I've built. That same venture-funded startup, we had a CEO that I had to fire. We could not work with this guy. And it was ugly, and it just about killed the business, but we survived that. And we got somebody else that, yeah, he may have been annoying at times, but he did the work, and he was good at sales, and he was good technically, and the work got done. And when it's 3 people, having somebody at the CEO level that is actually competent is a critical factor, which probably means for most really small startups, you're not going to have somebody as a CEO who's just a business person. That person is going to have technical skills. I actually found the second CEO I found was a PhD in physics. Interestingly enough, at that point, there was 2 PhDs in physics and me working in the business. And if these things kill you, the business fails. Oops. Um, is it going to break you up in business and life? No. Have I been through some business failures? Yeah. Is it sad? Yeah. Okay. At least one business failure that I went through, later I came back with different people. We did it a second time and it worked. So any one of these things can be the reason. It may not be other stuff. But yeah, there's some risk. And as I said, about 3 out of 4, beep. So it's not a panacea, and you do work a lot, but you get a lot out of it. Now, the magic piece of leverage in this is technology today, and blockchain provides you with a realm of new technologies to use. This is your leverage piece. And leverage times measurability. Why is measurability important? Because if you do something great, but there's no way to measure it, this is like being in a big company, because your work is all averaged in with all the other people in the company. If that happens, you're going to get average. Okay, this is why people in sales, when I worked in sales, it's measurable. Okay, they can actually say, you did this many sales, and therefore you get this kind of a commission. That's measurability. The thing that is inherent about a small team working on something is everything is measurable. If you have a bad person, you're going to know. It's going to kill the business quite often. It's measurable. But if you can pull all of this off, all of those things in terms of leverage and measurability mean that the measure can now be applied to you in terms of return and income. So whenever I'm involved in any of these things, I'm always looking for, what is the technology? What's the financial structure? Does it make sense? Is it going to be something that I can make money out of and make good money? How are they going to measure the success? Am I averaged in with a whole bunch of other things, or can they actually measure that I did something for them? So, smallness guarantees measurability, and largeness generally guarantees averages. So, some fallacies. I think I mentioned the fixed pie fallacy. This is a real common one. I don't know why people think that the world is a fixed pie. I mean, clearly we're all still riding horses and, this is how we get to work. No, the world has changed. We're about to see self-driving cars. And we're seeing all sorts of things with electricity tokens so that people's solar on their roof, they can get it and trade it with other people when they need it. So this measurability and these changes, give you the leverage. And that means we're in a bigger pie. It's a better world. And that improving world is not fixed. When you do something that makes the world a better place, it is a better place. That's what happened. And it's a bigger pie. And if you get rewarded for that because you put in some effort and you did the work, well, great. I get to enjoy the bigger pie too. Another one that people have as a thing is that they can't sell. I will absolutely guarantee to you, when I went to college, I was a wallflower and I couldn't sell. I went out and fixed that. I practiced. I learned. I got involved in things. And I learned how to sell and get things done. Okay? When they pulled me out on day one, they whacked me on the butt and I went, ah! I was selling. And there's more to it than just that, but you can get good at it. You don't have to stay bad at it. Fears. Oh my goodness. People are loaded with fears. Fear of people. That's a big one. Good heavens. You're going to have to pick up the phone. You're going to have to make phone calls. Or go meet people in person. Generally speaking, they don't bite your head off when you meet them in person. You can actually talk to a person, say hello, and in a business context, it's not too weird. I'm always, these days, meeting people. I was, a couple of years back, in the Dulles Airport in D.C., and there's a person there, and I'm talking to one person about some stuff, and this other person says, oh, you're working in blockchain, and I say, yeah, I do this stuff with food safety, and this and that, and they say, oh, I'm the head of safety for Walmart. And I say, oh, really? You're working with IBM Food Trust? Because I know Walmart uses IBM Food Trust. And they went, yeah. And I say, what do you think of IBM Food Trust? How is it working for you? And he tells me all the good and bad about IBM Food Trust, because I opened my mouth and talked in a pleasant fashion to different people. Okay, that's the kind of benefits you get when you just talk to the people around you. Fear of failure. I mean, this is a big one. Wow, lots of people are stuck with this. Fear of failure. Seriously, if you get involved in a startup and it goes under, be willing to tell the next people, yeah, they had a bad product market fit, or this, or this, or this, and it went under. That doesn't mean you're, ruined for life because something failed. It just means things didn't work out. Move on. Failure is not that much of a crisis usually. And this is one that I totally don't understand, but some people have to have a fear of success. They just don't want to, stand out from the crowd. I want to stand out in a good way. To be able to say, yeah, I stand out because I've done some good things and this is what makes me special. But there are people that just want to fit into the crowd and don't want to stand out. You can't be successful and just be a wallflower and fit into the crowd. Those are kind of some of my thoughts about startups. And where does blockchain fit into all of this? It makes a tremendous financial instrument. We still have all sorts of things out there. I'll give you an example that are being done on paper. And there are lots of them where people are tracking things on paper, where governments are requiring that there is this person, that their utility in life is basically that they put a signature on the bottom of a piece of paper. And that is their whole job. And yeah, those people are going to resist change. They're going to claw at it and scream and tell you how horrible it is. But blockchain is a financial instrument. Blockchain is a tracking tool. Let's run an example of blockchain as a tracking tool. Last year, there were 5.2 million residential houses sold in the United States. The Real Estate Association figures that it cost about $3,420 between title insurance and title searches for all of these. About 60% of the titles in the U.S. are on paper. As in, if you go and look in the books down in the courthouse, you can do a title search and you will actually turn pages in the book looking through and reading handwritten information on paper. And if you take these two numbers together, you're looking at something around $20 billion a year being spent on insurance, title searches for residential houses. And most of you at some point are going to buy a house. The question is, are you going to pay this or what they pay in Estonia, which is 20 euros? Works out to about $22 US right now. The reason that Estonia is cheaper and doesn't require title insurance is because the country put all of their titles for land on a blockchain. It is all public information. And so all of it is now searchable. You can search by location. They have a Postgres database that you can put in coordinates. You can search it. You can search by history. You can search by person. But basically, you can see, what is the title for this? What are the liens on this property? Is it free and clear when I buy it? And this is it, okay? And because it's on a blockchain and they've done a bunch of checking to validate the initial data, and all new data ends up on the blockchain, it's basically guaranteed. There's no need for title insurance when you can look up the data and have it be authentic. So here's a giant opportunity. And, the blockchain synchronizes across multiple different title offices in their country. You can look it up there. You can take a credit card. You can pay your money. You can look it up online without ever going into a title office in their country. But there it is. So here's an example. And, here's the kind of value we're talking about. I wrote up some contracts for a company that is still struggling with people problems. Down in Atlanta, that is working on trying to raise still more capital to read and convert all of Georgia's titles. That's 60% to run on an Ethereum blockchain. So they're struggling, yeah. But, the piece that I wrote for them, if they ever make it, I will end up being a partial owner in this business, and that will be worth something. And they're working on it, but they're not the only ones. There's certainly some incentives and some interest in doing that right here in Wyoming for titles. And places where you could go and do it right here, right now. And it isn't just these. There's also commercial real estate. There's all the stuff underneath the ground for mineral rights. Oil companies spend millions trying to sort out the mineral rights so that they can drill in a particular location. And all of that information, let alone the fact that lots and lots of times when a house is sold, it is not sold with the underlying mineral rights, even though they may be available. And the banks end up owning those mineral rights in between, but have no way of valuing it. So if you can put all of these things together, it's a lot more than $20 billion a year. A lot more. As well as other things that may come from having the residual data that says, this is the data and where it is, and how we're going to figure it out, and what's happening with it. So there's lots of revenue in just one thing like this, times many, many things. Okay? But for blockchain, it's reliability of data, it's sharing, it's things like these tokens for digital assets and transfer of digital assets, and how well does it fit in what you're trying to do. And we're going to look at more examples of different kinds of businesses as we go through that you could build with a blockchain. But a lot of this is all going to be startups and you saying, okay, I've got this idea. I'd like to build it on a blockchain. Here are the reasons why and what the blockchain gets for me. Here's how I'm going to transfer stuff. Here's what the tokens are going to do. These tokens, do they fit into an investment? Do I have to deal with the SEC? Do they fit into ownership of an asset? In which case they're a utility token according to Wyoming law. And apparently the SEC is now agreeing with this concept of utility tokens. So you need to know something about the law behind it. But you evaluate all these things and you can say, this is a viable thing. This is what my investors are going to want to ask questions about. Do I have the knowledge of all these different things and turn this into, here's a startup, here's how we're going to raise money, here's how we're going to sell this, here's the pieces, here's the cost, here's all the parts. And here's this new technology that gives you, yes, the leverage, and since you're at a startup, you have measurability, and that turns into money. All right, we'll catch you later.